Hello everyone, my name is Aakanksh Gurnani, and welcome to my YouTube channel Neuro Chat with AG. On this channel, I plan to cover topics that are closest to my heart and support the neurodiverse community. Topics related to neurodiversity, autism spectrum disorder, and more. On the channel, I will interview thought leaders, esteemed researchers, scientists, professors, doctors, and psychologists, seeking their views and updates on their latest work, research, etc. I will also chat with parents of neurodiverse kids and adults and talk about experiences of neurodiverse individuals. Christopher Banks is the current president and CEO of the Autism Society of America. He has a successful record of significantly increasing fundraising support, measurably improving revenue strategies, and dramatically transforming culture, diversity, and inclusion. Chris has been providing executive direction and leadership for the Autism Society since the beginning of 2020. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, he pivoted the national organization to be a resource, service, and support enterprise for the affiliates and individuals and families. Chris recently shepherded the organization and a team through a strategic planning process that resulted in key initiatives to create a new brand for the Autism Society. Mr. Banks, welcome and thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You are currently president and CEO of the Autism Society of America. Can you share its mission and how you measure its impact on the autism community?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So the mission of the Autism Society is really quite simple. It's we create connections, empowering everyone in the autism community with the resources needed to live fully. That mission gets measured by whether or not we are providing resources to individuals based on what they've asked for or what we understand that the autism community needs. I think it's important to remember that the autism community includes self-advocates, parents, siblings, care providers, teachers, educators, advocates, champions. It's a conglomerate of so many people that make up our society and our community, and Aakanksh, that's recognized in the logo that's behind me, right? The idea that it's not one, it's many threads coming together to make the fabric of society stronger. And that is the basis of the logo that's behind us. But it also speaks to the mission, which is to make sure that self-advocates and the community as a whole have the resources they need to live life fully.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I didn't know about that logo, so that's something very cool to learn.
Good.
Could you describe some of the national programs and initiatives currently offered by the Autism Society of America?
Sure. So the programs and services offered by the national office and the initiatives we're undertaking are a little bit different according to how you look at them with relationship to our affiliates. I think it's important to remember that the Autism Society of America, the oldest and largest autism grassroots organization in the United States, founded in 1965, is made up of 70 different affiliates across the country. So California has 5 of them. Texas has one that represents the entire state of Texas. Florida has one that represents the state of Florida. Ohio has 4 of them representing, or 5 representing different regions in Ohio. So those grassroots affiliates came about because families were looking for support services for their children originally, back in 1965. And the services are provided at the local level. Now, there are things we do at the national level to serve as well. But when I talk about services, I'm talking about billable services as well as non-billable. I'm talking about in North Carolina, for example, or Minnesota or Maine, our affiliates provide services that are reimbursed by insurance or Medicaid. They, affiliates, and us, national, provide information referral services. So we are providing a helpline. You could call 1-800-3-AUTISM and talk to somebody who could tell you where you might find ABA therapies, or where you might find an occupational therapist, or where you might find a dentist who has let us know that their work specializes in individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities or autism. And I think that is always at the core of what we do. That fits right in with our mission of providing resources for individuals to live fully. In addition, we have established some national initiatives that we're doing at the national level and collaborating with our affiliates or piloting with our affiliates. So a collaborative initiative was our vaccine education initiative. During COVID, we knew it was going to be important to make sure that individuals with autism and other developmental disabilities had access to COVID vaccines. And at the very beginning, it was breaking down the barrier of getting PPEs, personal protective equipment, right? Like masks and gloves and things like that. Then it became making sure that individuals were priority for receiving the vaccine. And that comes in our public policy work, right? But then we started looking at how do we provide vaccine education initiative work to get people to get the vaccine to deal with COVID. And so one of our initiatives was our vaccine education initiative, which has developed into a healthcare initiative, because we want to break down the barriers that are in place for individuals with autism to access healthcare. And so that's a major national initiative. We piloted with, I think, about 15 or so of our affiliates across the country, plus another dozen or so private partnerships to get a multitude of folks vaccinated and access to that. And we'll continue that into other healthcare areas. Another national program that we're undertaking, there are several, Safety on the Spectrum. Safety on the Spectrum, it comprises of two main components. First responder training, to educate first responders and the autism community about how to better interact with our first responder community. And it's very important that the first responder community know how to interact with the autism community as well, right? And that's really an important thing, and we see that challenge over and over again. Autistic individuals are more likely to encounter police than their neurotypical counterparts, and Black autistic individuals are even more disproportionately likely to encounter the police and or be arrested, and we need to work with that so that police are better able to assist and meet the needs of the autistic community. That's one side of the safety on the spectrum. The other side of it is the water and wandering. Aakanksh, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the second leading cause of death of children with autism is drowning. And it's horrific that there are members of the autism community who wander and then find themselves in water and then drown. And we think that we have an opportunity to make a difference in that. So we've developed a water and wandering safety program. We collaborate with the YMCA, with the Red Cross, with the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which looks at things like this, and have developed a program which we will pilot in different affiliates. I think a third area of outreach for us in national programs is in employment. I know you're in high school and you'll probably be moving on from there to college, I assume. That's your intent, right? And, the unfortunate data is that autistic individuals with college degrees have an unemployment rate of about 70 to 80%, depending on what you look at, what data points you look at. And we need to do a better job of that, making sure that based on what your interests are and what your skills are and what your talents are, we can help you find companies and business that have that. It's a change in the mindset from let's fill jobs to let's find fulfilling jobs. Big difference, right? One is I've got 3 openings and I just need 3 bodies to do the job. The other is let's find a fulfilling job for an individual that meets the needs of their company. So employment is a major initiative for us, not just to drive the data down of unemployment or underemployment, but also to change the system, systemic changes in the way the government incentivizes companies, looks at compensation, and looks at things like how much you get paid and what services you're available to receive and whether or not you get in jeopardy of receiving them because you earn too much money. So those are some of the national programs that are forward-facing. Internal national programs include serving and supporting our affiliates. We help to strengthen the affiliates. We provide marketing and branding material to them. We provide some guidance on how to be a better not-for-profit organization. We also look to help groups who want to start an affiliate and help them. So in the recent years, we've started an affiliate in Chicago, in Greater Detroit, Northeastern Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts. And we'll continue to do that where there's an interest at the community. So I know that seems like a lot. That is a lot, and there's more we're doing. But that just gives you a flavor of how we're trying to address some issues: safety, and employment. Lastly, I'll talk about is a huge initiative that we've started, which is the creation of the Autism Justice Center. And the idea with the Autism Justice Center is to provide supports and services for individuals who are encountering a violation of their human civil rights, as well as are encountering the criminal system, and how to help them navigate and get through that process. And to see where we may be able to mediate and mitigate for them, as well as educate. So the Autism Justice Center, a new initiative started this year, is the nation's first Autism Justice Center, and quite an exciting initiative for us to undertake.
Awesome. That's all really interesting, and it sounds like there's a lot going on. Um, so, could you please talk about your journey as well? Like what inspired you to become involved with the Autism Society of America and eventually accept the CEO role?
So I think that, as you read through my introduction, right, I've been in the not-for-profit space working for organizations that are helping others my entire career. I have been an educator, an executive director of a high school, to being on the college level administration. I've been an executive at healthcare systems, and always at the key of my personal development was, what can I do with all these gifts and talents that I have, that the skills and talents and the desire and the aptitude I have, how do I best serve other people with that? And so all of that was in my makeup, if you will, in my DNA and who I am. And then the board of directors of the Autism Society was doing an executive search, and they reached out to me and asked me if they could talk with me, and we talked a lot about that. And while I have a grandnephew who is dual diagnosed autistic and Down syndrome, I don't have anybody in my direct family with autism, but yet as we look at the logo, we look at the community, and that the role there for me is to be a champion, right? And to advocate and to speak on behalf of the autism communities and the work we're doing at the Autism Society. So that's how I got into this role and how I became the CEO. And we're in the middle of our fourth year of my leadership of the organization, which included the pandemic and moving through to a new strategic initiative. And getting ready for our 60th anniversary next year, and how that might all bring about the next strategic plan of where we're going to go.
So, my next question is about, children in autism. So, once your child is
Sure.
at least once you're 1 year old, an autism diagnostician, so a developmental pediatrician, child psychologist, or child psychiatrist can begin to explore evaluating them. Is there any message you have for parents or families on what they can do at home as an early intervention?
Well, I think that the message, first of all, we always want to encourage people to connect with the professional community, right? Early diagnosis of 12 to 18 months is recommended and followed, right? Obviously, parents are going to look for social cues. What are the social cues we're going to look at? Is your child responding? Is your child interacting? That's not the only thing, and that's not the end of the diagnosis process, right? If you have those perceptions of your child, then you have a conversation with your caregivers to have them evaluate your child. And when that occurs, and assuming that there is a diagnosis, then it's clear, let's get connected with the local affiliate and the local resources in your community, so that you're connected with other parents, you're connected with school systems that are adapt with handling these opportunities for enhancing an individual's life once the diagnosis is reached. And we know early intervention has a tremendous impact on development of an individual with autism. That's early. Now, let's not forget, and I'm going to jump to something that I think is next on the list of the there are so many individuals who were not diagnosed, right? And one of the misperceptions within this is that autism only impacts boys, right? And we clearly know that's not the case. Why we came to that conclusion years ago may be because that's where the testing was, right? That we were limiting our testing and screening to fourth grade boys. And then we expanded our screening pool to include girls and older boys, but we still have many young men, young adults who haven't been diagnosed and weren't tested, but yet exhibit behaviors and mannerisms and characteristics similar to individuals on the spectrum. So I think that early diagnosis is paramount. However, that doesn't mean that a crucial conversation might not have to be had with your professional care community about what you are seeing in your child, and what might be the next steps. But get connected with your local community. Call our helpline, 1-800-3-AUTISM, 1-800-3-AUTISM, and talk to people who are professionals that can help you and find the resources in your community.
Awesome. And you already answered my next question, so I guess I'll move one more ahead. What are some of the biggest challenges in the autism community, and how's your organization addressing them?
So I think there are many challenges within the autism community, right? And I think that the question is, what are the biggest challenges within the autism community has to be broken up in itself. And perhaps it's because you may be non-speaking or nonverbal. It may be because you are have significant support needs, or you're the parent of a caregiver who has significant support needs, who some people identify as severe or profound. That's not terminology we at the Autism Society use. We focus on the individual's needs, not on a label for an individual, but those with significant support needs. And then you have the self-advocate community, and it can be pretty fractured, right? Because they're all not in agreement there. And I think one of the works of the Autism Society is trying to always bring everybody together. Aakanksh, it's very important for me to ever be present and mindful that our organization represents the entire community. And many people think of autism linear. They have high support needs or they have low support needs, right? It used to be called high functioning and low functioning. We've moved away from that as well. And think of it more like a wheel and more like a pizza or a wedge, a slice of pizza. It varies based on what the circumstances are. Somebody could have low support needs in school, maybe a really good student, maybe able to do a lot of complicated tasks, maybe has good executive function skills at school, maybe they're a good problem solver. And yet they are really socially challenged when it comes to talking to their peers, and we have to help them with those support needs. And as a result, relationships would be an issue for them to need help with. Others may have needs about executive function. They may be really bright at some things, but yet don't take care of their personal hygiene the way they need to, and we need to work with them on that. It varies based on what the circumstances are. I know parents who talk about the fact that, given my child or my loved one who has autism certain supports, then I can leave them alone and let them be independent until they need more. Well, that's where we are, and I think that that's part of the challenges in the autism community. I think some of the challenges, another set of challenges, are those misconceptions and perceptions about individuals on the spectrum, right? Over and over again, we hear in the autism community, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And I don't think we can overuse that. Each of us are very unique individuals to begin with, but then within autism, we recognize that you can't just put everybody who has autism together and say they all look like this, they all sound like this, they all do this. We just don't. Right? Because we're all unique individuals with unique personalities and unique gifts, skills, and talents to bring to society.
Yes, that's true. And another thing I'd like to bring to the center of the discussion is that Mr. Banks, there's a lot less awareness on the numbers today. 1 in 36 children have been identified with autism, and we now know there are discriminations in educating them. What are your views on empowering more communication and resources for parents and caregivers?
We're not doing enough, and we want to do more. How's that for a short answer? I think we're doing a lot of good work, and putting people connected to the resources they need is paramount to that. But there's never enough, right? There are other things we have to think about. We have to think about how we're going to increase access to healthcare, as I talked about earlier on with our health equity initiative. How do we make sure that dental care is accessible? How do we address mental health concerns so we can address this daunting data point of suicide attempts from the autism community, especially from females within the community. I think that when you talk about discrimination in education, I think that the making sure that free access for public education is something that everybody is entitled to as a right, as an American citizen, as a right, as a citizen of the country, as a right of the resident of the country right now. You have that right to be educated, and we have to make sure it happens. It creates its own inherent challenges. I think the other thing that we have to look at is keeping every child safe, right? And so there are pieces of legislation that we're watching, CAS, keep every student safe, right? And that individuals not be segregated when they have communication challenges at school, which are perceived to be behavioral disruptions, which really are about our inability to understand the communication that is coming to us, not a self-advocate's ability to communicate. I have met lots of individuals who may be non-speaking or non-verbal, depending on how they identify, who make it very clear what their intent is, or what their desire is, or what they advocate for in a multitude of ways, right? And we have to remove our prejudice about how we think people, or our bias, our bias for how we think people should communicate with us, to how we better communicate with them.
And to go back to what you were talking about earlier about problems in unemployment, only about 19.3% of persons with a disability were employed in 2020. Can you please share how the Autism Society is working on reducing unemployment? What are your views on teaching tech skills versus utilizing their talents for patterns, music, and visualization to generate employment?
So my views on the teaching tech skills versus their skills and talents, I think I already spoke about that, right? It's looking at the individual and finding what's fulfilling for them rather than filling a job placement. Temple Grandin, great autism advocate, talks about how we need to cultivate what people are interested in and help them to find roles in the workplace based on that, which I think is good for the economy, by the way. I'm a strong proponent of recognizing employment not as a altruistic point of view. Oh, this is benevolence, but really, it's good business. It's good for society. It's good for individuals and their dignity to have a sense of belonging in the community, whether that's volunteer work or paid work, but a sense of being in the community. So I think that's very important to look at. I don't think we should deny anybody the opportunity to learn their skills, whether it's tech, whether it's an interest in history, whether it's an interest in painting, piano, or anything that people have an interest in. But not everybody, neurotypical or neurodiverse, probably should be going to college. I think we expand their opportunities to where they want to be. And I think that part of our unemployment numbers and our underemployment numbers are because we haven't focused on the individual, we've looked at the system. So underemployment is also a major effort. We have way too many individuals in the autism community who have received their bachelor's degree and are not employed in the area in which they were educated, right? Not only aren't working, but are working and not working in the areas they're educated for. And more times than not, unfortunately, they've taken a much lower paying job. So I think we have to work on that. And I think that happens when we change the culture at workplaces and we start to get to a place where we're not even talking about this anymore, because people are being looked at for who they are and what they can do and how they could add value to the organization, small business, large business, versus how can they fill the job that we need done at the company.
Regarding these policy issues, what are some of the major ones that the Autism Society is currently advocating for? And how can we collaborate with your teams and policymakers to influence legislation that benefits the autism community?
So thank you for the invitation. I think the first thing to do is to encourage viewers to connect with our Capital Connections. It's our online newsletter for public policy and advocacy, to be informed. There's so many pieces of legislation we're following right now. Nothing more important right now, and this is May of 2024, than the reauthorization of the Autism CARES Act. one of the few pieces of legislation that requires reauthorization every 5 years. Love to see that get to an evergreen, meaning that it just happens automatically. But right now, it must be passed by Congress, and that funds research and in the space of autism. And it's so important we do that, because that's such great creative intelligence comes out of that, and opportunities that create more resources for the autism community. So it's very important we do that. The bill is not about services and supports. It's not about Medicaid services. There's other places for that, which we are looking at. Second piece of legislation we're looking at is home and community-based services, making sure that, which is filled with a lot of things, including making sure that we're educating the caregivers for the home and community-based community, making sure that we're paying them a living wage. Unfortunately, too many of our caregivers that are being compensated at sub-minimum wage or minimum wage. And so we're competing with a variety of different employers at that price point. We have to work to increase their skill set, their education, and their compensation. And then within the home and community-based services, we also have to look at respite care to give families that break they need. We all need rest. It's why we sleep, so we can rest and restore our bodies. Well, the same thing with respite, base root, the root of that respite, right? Sleep. A rest, and we need that rest, and we need to make sure that individuals get that respite care. So that's on the home and community-based services. We're following the Key for Every Student Safe Act and making sure that that gets the support it needs. We continue to look at voting rights to make sure that disabled individuals get to vote. All of these things and many others are pieces of legislation we follow on a daily basis. I think there are 31 pieces of legislation that we're following at the national level right now, and are trying to advocate. And for your viewers, get connected with our Capital Connections, and from that, we are frequently encouraging you to engage your elected officials. Elected officials love seeing their constituents in their offices, so go talk to your elected official in their district and in their local area. And of course, that means looking at your federal, your state, and your home and community, your home and local, like your town or your county or your parish, whichever geography it is deemed and called. But get involved. Make sure that your elected officials know who you are. Make sure your elected officials know what your needs are and what your positions of your needs are, and challenge them to tell you what their position is on those things. More often than not, you're going to find an elected official who might not be as informed with the issues as you are, and you can actually help them to be better leaders by helping them to understand the issue and how it impacts you.
And to go back to what you were talking about earlier about wandering, 56% of parents identify elopement or wandering as one of the most stressful behaviors they had to cope with. The Autism Society launched the Safety on Spectrum Water and Wandering program to help educate water safety and training across the autism community. Could you please describe more of the goals and processes of the program?
Sure. I think one of the goals is obvious, right? I hope it's obvious. Prevent drownings. We have to prevent drownings. Notice I didn't say reduce the number of drownings. We have to prevent it. This is something we can actually just stop if we work at it, okay? And I think we have to set that as the goal, right? And obviously that means we've reduced the number of drownings to diminish. We just keep getting it to a de minimis number, right? But that's a very important part. I think the other part of the program, the other goal of the program is to educate more people. The model for the national programs that we're doing is the teach the teacher model, right? And the idea is if we teach one, we've taught one. If I teach a teacher, I could teach 30 or 50. So let's educate more. You may have heard the expression, if I give you a fish, I feed you. If I teach you how to fish, you're fed for life, right? And the idea there is if I can teach the teachers, if we can teach the teachers with the gold standard of what should be done, we have a better impact in preventing drownings. I think another goal of the program is to raise the awareness of this catastrophe and to create a sense of urgency that we must address it. Right? I believe you live in a state that has a very long coastline, with lots of water surrounding it. Not everybody has that, right? But yet lots of folks have lakes, ponds, streams, culverts, and just pools, right? And we have to also address that too.
Are there any other ongoing projects or initiatives led by the Autism Society that you'd like to highlight?
We one of the problems we have is there's so much to do. My team hears me say often, we can't boil the ocean, right? We can do anything, we can't do everything. And I want us to be addressing housing, and it'll take some time to do that. I want us to address access to dental care and mental health. I want to address aging. What does assisted living look like for the elderly from the autism community, the more senior members, right? And what does skilled nursing look like there? And then again, it's the care and then educating the providers. How do we interact with an individual with autism who has Alzheimer's, right? What do we do when an individual with autism has dementia? And much like the skilled nursing community, we want to move away from this perception of medicate, 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 right? There's a better way to do that with interactions and education so that we're addressing that. So I think that while I think we're doing a tremendous amount, and I think that my team is doing extraordinary efforts with we want to expand our first responder program. We want to make sure the justice standards stood up. We want to make sure our programs are always sustainable, are always consistent, and they're replicable so that somebody can pick it up and bring it and do it here. And then the topics that I think are most important for us is to look at for the future: aging, population transition, housing, and healthcare. If we look at those 4 areas, I think we're going to really have a lot on our plate.
Yeah, that's a lot of work to do, and I'm sure, and like I know the Autism Society is doing a lot already. Um,
Yeah.
but anything else you would like to add, Mr. Banks?
No, I think it's great to see young people like yourself trying to learn more about this opportunity, more about it, and want to encourage more people to get involved. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And for doing this conversation with me. And
Happy to
congratulations
be
on
with
your
you.
fantastic success and that of the Autism Society as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.